Good Tuesday to you. Hope things are going well. I want to share with you my latest book that I'm reading. Is this book, AI Superpowers, talking about artificial intelligence and basically how China is really ramping up in this area and looks to become a dominant power. So it's basically China versus Silicon Valley in this race to develop artificial intelligence. Now, the interesting thing is, I just picked up this book and started reading it when I saw it online. I got a copy of it simply because I'm interested in how artificial intelligence may affect us in the future. Have a very, it's good to know some trends that may affect things in the future. But reading this, one of the early things, and I'm just starting to get into it, one of the early things that he says, the author says, is that we're going to have to find our purpose in life because our job purposes are going to go away. So we're going to have to get back to basically finding out who we are and what we're good at. So the days of people just having a routine job, going to a job, doing whatever, and I've talked about this in other videos. You take the person that works, say retail, and we know about retail. Retail is dynamically changing and being reshaped, and it's not a stable environment. So if you're just a person working at a store, doing whatever, you're a clerk, you're stocking, you're cashiering, you're managing, just working in a store, okay? And that's what you do, okay? So every morning or every day you get up, you go to work, you put in your hours at this store, you go home, you eat some food, you watch some TV, and you go to sleep, and you do it all over again, and you're very satisfied with this type of lifestyle. Well, what if that was replaced or went away? What happens when you go to work one day and they say we're closing, right? I worked in retail back in the 90s. I worked at a small toy store, okay, and there was a time when we started looking and started realizing that we were paying something like, I think, $2,000 a month, okay, for rent for this store. And we were bringing in some days less than $300 in profit, or in revenue. So, we started thinking, okay, we've got $2,000 a month for rent for this store, and we've got employees. There's 3 people working right now, and they're all working a full day, so that's 24 hours of, say, $8 an hour. And then to bring in not even $300 a day, the math was just not adding up, right? And in a lot of cases, it's kind of the economy of large scale, right? You've got multiple stores across a chain. Some are very, very successful and some are not so successful, but it kind of all averages out, right? And the ones that don't survive. That struggle, they don't survive. They get cut. And we've seen that, right? We've seen that recently. And I talked about it, and right after I talked about it, there was this report about stores closing, right? Victoria's Secret's closed a bunch of stores, and other chains followed suit. They said they were closing stores as well. The other day, I was trying to think of a store that I used to shop at in the 90s that closed and was replaced by another store that's so similar to it. And I was trying to think, what was the name of that store? So I went online and I started looking at all these stores that had claimed bankruptcy. And I found that this particular store was started, I think, down in Atlanta, Georgia, and with one store, and then they branched out, and I think they had at the most around 20 stores, 16 to 20 stores. And within 10 years, they went out of business. And certainly there's been many stores, department stores, that have disappeared because they were acquired. A lot of them were acquired by the big retail giants like Macy's or Dayton Hudson. They bought up a lot of stores and changed them to their brand. We've seen it here, and I'm sure you've seen it where you are. In our shopping malls, there's been a regular turnover of anchor stores. Certainly the one that I talked about was one of them that closed, and another one opened up behind it. But that had replaced another one, that had replaced another one. And the same thing has happened in industries like banking. Banking constantly changes. I've had the same bank probably for over 25 years now, but guess what? They just merged with another bank, and they're going to come up with a new name. There was a time when banks were changing all the time, new names and new players coming in, and just constant change in banking. And so that, the whole landscape of retail and restaurants, look at the number of restaurants that have come and gone. I was just reading an article about some of the restaurants of the past that no longer exist. And, there's some that are, still struggling now to stay afloat. So if you are a dedicated employee to one of these businesses, whether it's a bank or a store or a fast food chain, who's to say, that a major player doesn't survive? Again, economy of scale, we probably won't see McDonald's go under because there's just so many stores. There's so many Starbucks stores. There's so many 7-Elevens. There's so many Burger Kings, But there are smaller chains that may not make it. And certainly that has been something that's changed, from decade to decade. So what I'm saying is that people that work in these businesses, even if it's their own business, their own restaurant, their own retail store, bookstore, whatever they have going on, maybe they decide to open up their own toy store. We all know what happened with toys, right? The big toy retailers have gone, right? Even the small toy retailers have gone. And I was in that space, and I saw some changes. But now, right, it's try to find a toy store, right? You can't find one. Bookstores are the same thing, right? There used to be lots of bookstores. There's a few left, but there's not as many as there used to be. Malls are just struggling. We've got one mall that basically has clothing and shoes, some jewelry, and that's about it. Even the food court is gone. Certainly no bookstores, no toy stores. Anchors have all left. And this is not new to you. You've probably seen the same thing wherever you are. We know that the internet and people's shopping habits and just the way people live their lives has changed many different landscapes, right? The movie industry, retail, restaurants. Even, I heard someone talking about how we are the most connected society ever to exist because we are connected through the internet, right? Our cell phones. We have all these connections on our phone, all our friends, all our followers, yet we are the most disconnected society as well. We don't have authentic connections with people. We don't go to someone's home and sit down with them, physically talk to them. We don't physically take them out. We don't share each other's company in a variety of settings, right? We don't go to the movies together. We don't go bowling together. We don't go to restaurants together. We don't go shopping together. We become isolated. We are isolated in our homes, watching Netflix, scrolling through Instagram, checking up on Facebook, reading the crazy stuff on Twitter from some people out there, whatever it may be, watching YouTube videos. We are very disconnected, and it's a sad fact, but it has changed, just like any other great technological change. The television probably changed a lot of people. Even the radio changed a lot of people's habits, right? People were not going out. They were sitting around the radio listening to their favorite show. And then along came television and did the same thing, right? The next thing was the internet. They're saying that artificial intelligence is going to be akin to electricity, right? A big change that will spread out among products and services. So it has yet to be seen what will happen, but we're already seeing the groundwork being laid. And the core fuel of artificial intelligence, according to this book, of course, is data. They have to know our preferences and our habits, and they get that all through the various internet interactions that we have. The book says that China is advanced in this data collection. One, because there's more Chinese people in the world, so they've got a bigger audience of people to draw from. But also it argues that they are able to gather information from people while they're offline through their purchases at merchants and buying food and things like that. So it really all comes down to marketing, right? There's not at this point an evil intent, but it certainly solves some problems to where if you could tap into various sources, you could determine someone's creditworthiness, their overall profile, basically, based on everything that you know about them that's been gathered through and recorded on the internet. So that's it's kind of scary, and it could affect a lot of different things. We talk about what goes on the internet stays on the internet. What if they came up with a score that went through every single Facebook post you ever made, every comment you ever made, every tweet you ever made on the internet, and came up with some type of score. Was it good? Was it bad? Was it viewed as racist? Was it viewed as hateful? Was it skewed towards a particular political party? Was it, whatever? They determine based on all that. They'll say this person is from whatever political party. Their views are this about this. A score for everything, right? And then they base your ability to get a job or any number of things based on that particular score. So, and that can hold you back on a lot of things. What if they determined that those things made you a good risk or a bad risk for insurance, for loans, for overall responsibility, and there's nothing you can do about it because it's kind of like we as a human race, right, have complicated things because we feel that we can act as God, right? We feel that we can be gods and we can create our own world better than the world that was given to us. And it's come to the point now, we've seen it, right? We've seen it in rogue groups who play God, who say, I am going to expose the evil deeds of men, of mankind, and let them be judged. And that is ultimately what could happen. We could go from being creative gods to being judgmental gods, who know, we think, the hearts and minds of people and therefore judge them and convict them. Could be very scary. So it's something that you should learn a little bit about. It's not a conspiracy, but you should know kind of what's in the world besides where you live, wherever that may be, and know what other countries are aiming for and where they plan to be in the world in the future. Of course, the Chinese culture. There's a lot of fighting in this book, and like I said, I'm just in the beginning of it, but there's a lot of fighting that goes back, hundreds and thousands of years with, these warlords and things like that, and it's kind of getting back to that. I really didn't realize how cutthroat the world of internet technology is, at least in China. They do a lot of really just battles, talking about slandering people and going as far as to get people arrested, get CEOs arrested, every dirty trick, installing rogue programs and viruses, and creating bad press. And it's just it's kind of like how naive we were before the current political climate that we're in, right? And we're starting to see that maybe stuff goes on behind the scenes. It's really pretty, well, it's it will be seen, it will be determined, but it certainly looks like a lot of stuff goes on behind the scenes, and not just with one party, with both I don't agree with the world of politics as it is right now, because I think stuff goes on both sides, and we have influences that attract people from both parties and influence them and have for a long time. But certainly we're seeing when that influence rises to the top, when the influencers become the leadership, the kinds of things that can happen. So I don't want to get too political, but that's just my view on that. But good book. If you get a chance, pick it up. But I thought it was just interesting from me being the purpose guy to reading very early on in this book that there's going to be a shift, and if all the basic jobs go away, right, and it's gonna hit at the top and it's gonna hit at the bottom, and it's gonna shake things up. So the people who find their purpose in going to work and putting cans on a shelf, or ringing up customers, or changing oil, or whatever they do in their daily life, if that gives them satisfaction, that could be taken away. And then where do you find your purpose, right? One day you're a mechanic, the next day you're an unemployed person, and that's any industry. One day you're a blank employee working for a blank store. The next day you're not working there anymore. And then who do you identify yourself as? And then you have to look inside yourself and say, who am I? Fundamentally, what do I believe in? What am I good at? What are my talents? What are my skills? Because there could be a storm, a perfect storm of economic upheaval, political, social unrest. It could be quite crazy, and the only thing left, is you as an individual and your particular purpose for being here on this planet. So it's kind of deep, but it's something you should really think about. What is your purpose? Especially just in general, in the economy that we live in, shifting from all the past things. I was talking with my wife about sort of the just kind of contemplating, how we got to where we are, right? How we got to people leaving their homelands, at least in the United States, leaving their homelands, leaving, say, England and coming over here. What was their purpose? And then what were the reasons why we needed to have certain things imported into the United States, whether it be resources, foodstuffs like sugar or tea or spices or what have you. And then the gradual shift to industrialization. So a lot of, was it the imports? Was it laziness? Because we also had slavery, and then when slavery ended, then kind of agriculture shifted, and we got into industrialism, and what was it that drove that? Was it the car? What was it? So we'll talk more about that another time, but get a chance, get the book. Great talk to you. Have a great day. Comment below with your comments. Look forward to speaking to you soon.